Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, we are ready for the event.
Houston ACR, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Houston ACR. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear.
Please stand by for opening remarks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sean Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Mansfield ISD. Welcome to today's NASA In-Flight STEM Downlink, a unique opportunity to connect with astronauts aboard the International Space Station. In Mansfield ISD, we recognize the importance of building STEM skills and identities early, preparing our learners for the jobs of tomorrow. Events like this spark curiosity and open doors to career possibilities in fields that shape the future of exploration and innovation. Thank you for tuning in. Let's continue reaching for new horizons.
Hi, my name is David, and I'd like to know what qualities about yourself made you want to become an astronaut, and what steps did you take, education, internships, etc., to be where you are today?
Hey, David, I think that's a great question. And to Mansfield, welcome to the International Space Station. For me personally, I've always had an affinity for the sky and for space, and I knew I wanted to fly from an early age. And so I think that's just kind of what led me to going into the Air Force and being a pilot. I really wanted to fly the shuttle. The shuttle was still flying when I was growing up. So kind of knowing that path existed is what caused me to want to go to the Air Force Academy. I loved math growing up as well, so that was just kind of a natural path for me as well. And then the Air Force led me to NASA.
Hi, I'm Steven, and my question is, when the International Space Station retires, why do people want to deorbit it instead of raising it to a higher orbit?
Hey, that's a very important question. And the International Space Station is the biggest human-made structure in space. So if we move it to a higher orbit and leave it there, it could endanger other spacecraft and satellites. So that's why it is so important for us to safely deorbit the station once it retires. Thank you for the question.
Hi, my name is Alvaro, and I have a question. Have you ever done a nucleation in the International Space Station, and how did the reaction differ when done in space?
And this is an interesting question. We do a lot of different types of science on the International Space Station. And actually, protein crystal growth is one of those types of science that we do. And that's where nucleation happens. And protein crystal growth, the way the crystals grow, they actually grow much larger in space and more unique and symmetric because there's not the force of gravity holding down those smaller processes. So we get to learn a lot about protein crystal growth, and actually that helps us inform the way that we create medicine for things like Parkinson's disease and cancer.
Hi, my name is Olivia, and I'm wondering, how do you see the International Space Station's research impacting future missions?
Hey, that's a very good question. So the ISS is one of the only places we can conduct a long-duration research in microgravity. So we use the ISS as a test bed to develop new space technology and to better understand how space environment affects human bodies in order to prepare for our future missions. Thank you for the question.
Hi, my name is Maria, and my question is, what is one life lesson that you have acquired from your time in space and in training, and has it changed your view of the way you live on Earth?
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned up here is how to live and work with limited resources. We get cargo vehicles that come up every 6 months or so, but we don't have running water, so we have to wear our clothes more often than you would on Earth. And so I think that, limiting what you use and how you affect the environment is probably something that I will definitely continue to do, but also increase at home. I've learned how to be creative and use limited resources up here on the International Space Station.
My name is James, and I've been wondering, on the International Space Station, what activities must be done to stay in orbit and survive?
Hi, James. We need many systems in order for us to survive on the ISS, and probably the most important system is life support system. It generates oxygen for us to breathe and also remove carbon dioxide, and also it produces water and food. And we also need some other systems in order to provide some power to the life support system, like electrical power system, or also a thermal control system, as well as a communication system. So the bottom line is we need many, many activities, or I would say systems, in order for the human beings to be present in the microgravity environment. Thank you for the question.
Hi, my name is Mohammed, and I have a question for you. What extremely advanced technology do you use daily that you think is quite literally out of this world?
Oh man, Mohammed, I was thinking about this question, and I think actually our communication system is pretty advanced. We use a whole satellite system and several different satellite systems in order to communicate with other vehicles as they come on board to the International Space Station, but also with the ground. And it's a really complicated system, and because each satellite is in its own orbit, and we're also in our own orbit. So combining all of those things that are actually off planet and getting them all to line up so that we can talk to you like this live and have internet and have clean, fast communication with the Earth and other vehicles is pretty fascinating, if you ask me.
Hello, my name is Samuel, and this is my question. How do you prepare the International Space Station to receive new astronauts?
Hey, thank you for the question. So we set up their sleep locations and also other hardware like computers and tablets. And also each of us has some crew-specific food, and also each person has its own clothes items. So we also prepare those items for them for them to get adapted to a new environment very quickly. And that's how our previous crew prepared for us. Thank you for the question.
Hi, my name is Alex. What is the most difficult engineering problem that you had to solve in the International Space Station, and what made it so difficult?
Alex, I like the way you're thinking with this question. As personally, I haven't run into anything super tough engineering-wise, and as a crew, I don't think we've had to solve anything super tough. But just think about how we get all of the power here on the International Space Station. We have these massive solar arrays that take all of that energy from the sun, and then there are multiple different layers of machines and systems that take that pure solar power and make it take it down into just your 120 volts, like we can plug into a normal outlet here on the space station. So what a fascinating engineering problem that we had to solve in order to live up here.
Hello, my name is Nolan, and my question is, what is the most unexpectedly beautiful thing you have seen in space where photos and videos don't do justice?
I would say it is the International Space Station itself. So we spent one day after the liftoff in our spacecraft, cruising in black space. And when we approached to the station, we saw the International Space Station shining in the darkness of space. And the view was just so surreal, and I will never forget that moment. Thank you for the question.
Hi, my name is Noah, and I was wondering what STEM skills or mindsets have helped you the most as an astronaut.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I was a math nerd. I loved solving problems, and I think the solving problems and critical thinking that you get from really any sort of STEM class pays big dividends up here. As pilots, we both have learned how to solve problems under pressure, and so I think that those critical thinking skills under pressure, those are the most important things that we bring to the International Space Station as the humans that work and live on board.
Hi, my name is Caden. What is it like using a 3D printer in space? And do you think astronauts will be able to print tools or even build things like shelters on the moon or Mars one day?
Thank you for a great question. So actually, we have been testing the 3D print technology on board this station since 2014. And it is possible to print tools in space. And also, when we get to the moon or Mars, it is very, very important to have that kind of capability, because for those exploration missions, our cargo supply will be super limited. So it's super important to be able to produce some tools or any kind of hardware at that place. Thank you for the question.
Hi, my name is Allison, and my question is, how does the lack of gravity affect the growing of sustainable plants on the International Space Station?
Hey, Allison, we actually just harvested some plants this morning as one of the experiments up here. Plants, they need their food and their water and their sunlight just like on Earth. So we have to use LEDs to emulate the sunlight. We have to have special tubes that force the water down towards the roots, because water doesn't flow up here. It's not being pulled by gravity. And then we put them in little pillows or pockets, especially in the veggie experiment module. We put them in these little pockets so that they can get their nutrients from that pillow.
Hi, my name is Ken, and my question is, what scientific experiment or mission in space are you most proud of and why?
Hi, Ken. We are now in the Japanese experiment module, and right there is a Japanese experiment called ELF. It stands for Electrostatic Levitation Furnace, and that's the one I'm very proud of. And the number one reason is that's a Japanese experiment. And the second reason is it's a very cool experiment. It uses laser to heat up materials up to a couple of thousand degrees degrees in Fahrenheit to get new data. So to get new data that we cannot obtain on the ground. So I like that experiment very much.
Hi, my name is Hallie, and my question is, what type of careers are available at NASA for someone with a bachelor's degree in environmental engineering?
Great question. At NASA, we want all types of engineering. So environmental engineering, we look at the environmental sustainment. And so we have several positions for environmental engineers, but we also want chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, software engineers. We need any type of engineering at NASA. Not just engineers. We need scientists, doctors, pilots. We want a broad variety of professionals so that we can think critically and solve those problems as we move on to the moon and on to Mars.
Hi, my name is Elliot, and I wonder, what are your thoughts on the feasibility and timeline for interstellar travel?
Hey, I love sci-fi movies, so I wish I could do interstellar travel someday. However, it will be such long travel that we need to develop new rockets and new spacecraft that can fly much faster than the one we have right now. So I would say it'll take a couple of centuries.
Hi, my name is Ivy, and I was wondering, how do your taste preferences change in space, and what Earth foods do you miss the most?
Hey, Ivy. So up here without gravity, we have a lot of fluid in our body that shifts northward, so up into our head, and which kind of gets you a little stuffed up sometimes. So it affects your smell, which affects your taste, kind of dulls your taste just a little bit. But my preferences haven't changed. I still like a good burger, and that's probably what I miss the most. Although Anne mentioned chips and queso the other day, and that had me thinking I kind of miss some chips and queso as well.
My name is Bennett. And I was wondering, what are you currently studying in the International Space Station?
So we do a bunch of research and day by day, and those are all different types. And like Nichole mentioned, this morning we were together working on a plant experiment which investigates how the space radiation environment affects plants' growth. And I harvested samples on petri dishes, and Nichole put them into a freezer so that the scientists on the ground can analyze those samples when they return home.
Hello, my name is Grayson. My question is, what made you want to become an astronaut as your career?
Hey, Grayson, like I said earlier, I always loved the sky and I always loved space. I would drag my family out to the middle of nowhere in Colorado so we could get rid of the city lights and watch meteor showers as a kid. So I think that there was just something inside me that loved it from the beginning. And then I was a really serious little kid who set really high goals and just kind of worked really hard and tried to be a good team player and got to where I am today.
My name is Natalie, and what are some challenges you go through as you work in the International Space Station?
One of the common challenges here we have is it is very easy to lose your stuff. So, for example, I lost my glasses a couple of weeks ago, and a week later, one of my colleagues, she found those glasses for me. And that's why it's very important for us to have like those Velcros on our pants so that we can stick many things to our pants so that we won't lose them.
Hello, my name is Noelle, and I wanted to know what kind of research you do on the International Space Station and how often you can communicate with Earth to actually send that research.
Oh man, Noel, this is a great question as well. At any given time here on the International Space Station, there are over 200 experiments going on, whether it's inside, outside, looking at Earth, looking at the deep space. So we do a lot of different types of research. And like I talked about with the comm systems, oftentimes when we're here, we actually are talking directly to the scientist as we're executing the science for them to make sure that we're doing everything right. These scientists, they spend their life's work dedicated to this science, and it's our duty and our responsibility and honor to work closely with them and make sure that it gets done properly. And then for things that need to go home, like the plants we just harvested this morning, we can throw them in the freezer and then they'll go home on the Dragon or the cargo vehicle that's up here. So we will actually send cargo back down to be analyzed on the ground.
Hello, my name is Levi, and I was wondering, how do you use aerodynamics to help get off the surface?
Hey, thank you for the question. So we use aerodynamics to prevent our spacecraft and rockets from being damaged during our liftoff. And also, it becomes more important during when we come home, because when the spacecraft penetrates through atmosphere, it receives a huge amount of pressure and also heat from atmosphere. So that's why it's important for us to study aerodynamics to safely go to space and also get back home.
Hi, my name is Josiah, and I was wondering, how can we use microgravity to deepen our understanding of space?
Oh man, Josiah, we use microgravity to learn lots of things about different processes and different science. So physics, fluid dynamics, chemical dynamics, mechanical, material science, all sorts of things. We learn so much when we take the force of gravity away about those small forces and processes that we just can't see on Earth. And we have to know about that stuff before we move on to further out in space, because we don't have, like Tak said, we don't have the ability to resupply, and we're going to be very limited on our cargo. So we have to learn as much as we possibly can here in low Earth orbit before we go.
Hi, my name is Dr. Grimble, and I'm the CEO of STEM Sports. Wow, what an incredible journey. On behalf of all of us at the Mansfield ISD, thank you to NASA and the amazing astronauts for giving us a front row seat to space exploration. Remember, the universe is full of possibilities, and so are you. Keep reaching for the stars. Your future in STEM starts now.
Thank you very much for those excellent questions. We really enjoyed talking with you guys and hopefully see you guys on the ground.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.